Hey, Algebra 2, today we talked about synthetic division in class. We also talked about long division, and then we also talked about factoring cubics. So those are the three things we're going to talk about just now. We're going to start with long division. Long division can be a little tedious, and that's why we have synthetic division.
Ms. Nelson, you have a visitor in the office. Ms. Nelson, you have a visitor in the office.
So let's check out long division first, then we'll go into synthetic division, and then we'll talk about factoring cubics. So we're going to start by writing x plus 6, and we're dividing that into 6x to the third, 28x squared, minus 44x plus 16. Okay? So let's start off by thinking about our steps that we talked about in class. We need to start by dividing the first terms. So right here, where my face is, I'm going to move it right here. Let's start by dividing the first terms, and once we get that value, we'll use distribution. So let's say 6x to the third divided by x. So I'll do that up here just to show you what I'm thinking about. There's a 1 here, that's secretly here. 6 divided by 1 is 6. And when you divide exponents, you really subtract their powers. And the power here is not written, so 3 minus 1 x squared. Okay? So when I distribute here, it should give me that exact term. 6x squared times 1x is 6x to the third. 6x squared times 6 is 36x squared. Okay? So this next part I'm going to change to red, because if you're in class today, I talked about how this is a part that a lot of students don't do well with. We are subtracting everything in the second one. So 6x to the third minus 6x to the third is 0. That's not really where most people miss it. They miss it here. You're really subtracting. So 28 minus 36 is negative 8 x squared. Okay. So if you remember how division works, whenever you're doing it by hand, you have to drop down the next value and basically repeat this process. So the next thing we're going to divide is negative 8x squared divided by that 1x that we see out front. So negative 8 divided by 1 is negative 8. And then x squared divided by x, those are subtracting. 2 minus 1 leaves me an x there. So when I distribute, it should give me the exact same term the first time. Negative 8x times 1x is negative 8x squared. Negative 8x times 6 is negative 48x. So remember, we are subtracting. So when you subtract, minus a minus ends up making that a plus, and then that is 0. Same thing here, minus a minus really makes this a plus, and that gives you 4x. Negative 44x plus 48x, same as 48 minus 44, positive 4. So let's drop it down. And let's repeat that process one last time. 4x divided by 1x. 4x divided by 1x. The x's kind of cancel because 1 minus 1 is 0. 4 divided by 1 is 4. So let's distribute. 4 times 1x is 4x. 4 times 6 is 24. And again, I'm going to switch to red because this part's a little dangerous. You're subtracting. 4 minus 4, 0. You're really minusing this right here. 16 minus 24 is negative 8. So the way that I write my final answer, this is my remainder down here, because I'm going to go up here and say, okay, I'm subtracting because that's a negative, and then I say the remainder is 8 over what I was dividing by, x plus 6, and this one's done. Okay, so I modeled one for you. You try number 7, and when we come in tomorrow, we'll check your work to see if it's correct, but give one a shot on your own. So the next thing we talked about is the idea of synthetic division. And so it's very similar to the other one, but it has a few little tricks to it that you got to remember to really understand if you're doing it correctly. So let me read the problem. It says, determine if the binomial x plus 2 is a factor of this p of x expression they give us, the cubic. So if it is, let's write that polynomial in factored form, and if it's not, well then let's plug in negative 2 and see what you get out. So when you're looking at this, if it's a factor, that means when you do synthetic division, you'll get a remainder of 0. Now, you must remember that when you're using synthetic division, you have to use the 0 of what you're dividing by. So really, negative 2 is what would make this 0. So we're going to use negative 2. And now I'm going to pull all the coefficients. I had 1, 1, negative 16, and negative 16. All those coefficients, I'm going to pull and use those as a part of the problem. Okay? So today I did a little quick hip-hop rap for you. Drop, multiply, add, multiply, add, multiply, add. And that is basically the steps that we use here to get started. So when I say drop, I'm really adding 1 plus nothing in this space right here. So 1 plus 0 is 1. So I'm just dropping that first value down. We're going to multiply. Negative 2 times 1 is negative 2. These add together, and you get negative 1. You multiply negative 2 times negative 1, you get positive 2. You add these two together to get negative 14. You multiply these together, negative 2 times negative 14 is positive 28. And when you add those together, you get a remainder of 12. So the fact that this is not 0 means that the answer to this problem is not a factor, okay? If you're using synthetic division and you get exactly 0, that means x plus 2 was a factor of what you synthetically divided it into. So, what does it mean when it says, okay, if it's not a factor, then find P of A? Well, P of A for this one is the number negative 2. That's the number you plugged in. So I want to plug in negative 2 in for x. So I've got x to the third, really negative 2 to the third, plus x squared, really negative 2 squared, minus 16x, that's really negative 2, and then a minus 16. So let's take a minute and see if we can put that in the calculator. So negative 2 to the third, let's see, plus, I gotta look back and see what it was. It was negative 2 squared, x squared, and then we had a minus 16x, so minus 16 times negative 2. And then the last part was minus 16. Okay? And notice I get 12. Well, that is one of the coolest things I personally think about synthetic division is input-output is the same idea as the remainder. Okay? So if it's a 0, that means when you plug that value in, you get exactly 0. That's why you want the remainder to be 0, because it's really flexing the idea of input-output. So the last thing we also reviewed how we can use zeros and multiplicity to sketch graphs. We're going to keep doing that each day because that was something we did last week on Thursday and Friday to get ready for our test this Friday. So we're going to talk about factoring cubes. I talked about how you need to memorize some stuff to really be able to do this. There's a little saying that helps you with the signs. We call it SOAP. Same, opposite, always positive. But you really got to memorize the form. So AB, A squared, AB, B squared. AB, A squared, AB, B squared. And then the signs we can kind of fill in. So let's get started into trying one. Okay. Actually, I think I need to write on the board because I don't think I've snapped pictures of these. So give me just a second. All right. So let's say we're factoring k squared, k to the third, minus 512. Okay. So we have to figure out, like, what did I cube to get k to the third? Well, there's a 1 here. 1 cubed is 1, so really I cubed 1k. And B, what did I cube to get 512? Well, I really cubed negative 8. And so that's where we took some time today to kind of fill in this chart where we can kind of say, okay, there's 1 cubed is 1, and then 8 cubed is 512. That can kind of help you once you memorize those numbers. So let's give it a shot. So this is what I'm talking about memorizing that form. You have AB, sorry, no signs first. AB, and then you have a longer trinomial, A squared, AB, B squared, okay? And so the whole SOAP thing, which is same, opposite, always positive, what that means is the first time the sign is the same. Well, then the second time, whatever this one is the opposite. And then the last one is always positive. Okay? So I'm going to put this in the form and see what we get. So a minus b, okay, really you have k minus 8. Okay? And then we have these multiplied together. And now I'm thinking that maybe that's confusing. Maybe you can just think about that as 8 and let the signs really, hold you for the soap in here. I don't want that to be confusing. I'm sure it's already confusing. So a squared is if you had k and you squared it, then this would be k squared. If I'm multiplying these together, it's like I'm adding 8k. And then the last one is if you had b squared, and in this problem b is 8, so it's like you have 8 squared, which is 64. So I want to check my time to make sure I have time to do this. I do. It's only 11 minutes in. This part is not necessary, but to check your work, I could multiply it together, and it should give me k to the third minus 5/12. So let me show you. K times k squared, k to the third, k times 8k, 8k squared, k times 64, 64k. I'm now going to slide over and multiply negative 8 to the trinomial. Negative 8 times k squared, negative 8k squared, negative 8 times positive 8k, negative 64k, negative 8 times 64, negative 512. And if you notice, some stuff is going to cancel out. This one and this one, 0. This one and this one, 0. And you're left with k to the third minus 512. So that part's unnecessary, but it sure feels good to know you did it correctly, because if you factor it correctly, they should multiply to be what you started with. Let's try another one, and then I'm going to let you try the rest of them independently. I know I assigned number 8 as well, so let me show you number 8. X to the third plus 8y to the third. So when I start, I'm going to do my form, AB, a squared, AB, b squared, and then you got to think about the signs. The signs are the same. That's a plus. This is a plus. This is opposite, and this last one's always positive. So when I'm thinking about what number am I dealing with to get x to the third, there's like a 1 here. So that means I really got like 1x. 1x cubed would be x cubed. And b, this value would be 2y. You have to cube 2 to get to 8. And of course, there's a variable there also. So now I'm just going to use my form to plug everything in. A plus b is really x plus 2y. Next is taking the a value and squaring it. So that's x squared. I want to multiply these together, so that's basically 2xy. And then the last one is if I squared this, 2y times 2y, that would be positive 4y squared. So you have a few other problems to try. I want you to try 5 and 6 on this page that we just talked about. And then I also want you to try that other long division problem. Hope this video is helpful, and I will see you tomorrow.